Reading from FULGRIM by Graham McNeil. Visions of Treachery. Chapter 24. Brothers with Bloody Hands. Ferrus Manus smote all with his fist. Twin balls of silver steel that crushed bone and clove armor wherever they struck. His gun was discarded, his load of ammunition long since expended. But he needed no mere weapon to be a lethal killing machine. No blade could wound him, and no shot could penetrate his armor. His every movement a fluid economy of motion as he killed with every stride, pushing the fighting wedge of the Morlocks deeper into traitor lines. The sword that hung at his waist was like a lead weight of cosmic justice at his side, but he would not draw it, not until he faced his traitorous brother and revealed its terrible purpose before taking his revenge. He longed to push ahead of his warriors, to carve a bloody path through the traitors in search of Fulgrim. But while the battle still hung in the balance, he could not set aside his duty of command and seek a duel with the viperous Primarch to settle once and for all the enmity between them. The fire and the clamor of the war surrounded him. Smoke boiled from wrecked tanks and shattered defenses, and explosions of gunfire filled the air with bullets, bolts, and lasers. Screams of blood filled his senses. The chaotic nature of the battlefield, a morass of thousands upon thousands of warring Astartes. Even through his fury, Ferrus saw the horrific tragedy being played upon the stage of Istvan V. Nothing would ever be the same again after this battle, even in their final victory. This betrayal would forever stain the honor of the Astartes, no matter the outcome. Men will fear us from this day forwards, and they will be right to, thought Ferrus. He heard the cries of jubilation behind him, but it was some moments before their substance penetrated his killing rage. He crushed the skull of a warrior of the Sons of Horus in his mighty fist and turned to see the welcome sight of an aerial armada of gunships dropping from orbit. "My brothers!" he yelled triumphantly as he recognized the familiar iconography of his fellow loyalists. Alpha Legion Thunderhawks screamed over the battlefield, and in the mid-skinned vessels of the Night Lords swooped in to take position over the flanks to envelop the War Master's forces. Word-bearer Stormlords howled in on screaming jets, the gold wings on the glasses of their craft shimmering as though afire in glow of battle. Heavy transports of iron warriors slammed into the Urgal depressions and disgorged thousands of warriors, who immediately began fortifying the landing zones with armored barricades and looping coils of razor wire. Tens of thousands of his fellow Astartes poured onto the surface of Istvan V in a single stroke. Their loyalist force was more than double in size. Ferrus punched the air in righteous vindication as he watched the power and might of his brother's legions fill the black desert behind him, their warriors fresh meat for the battle. His Vox unit chimed urgently as a ripple of fear visibly passed along the traitor lines at the sight of such a terrifying display of martial power. His practiced eye could see that the traitor forces had lost their stomach for the slaughter, entire cohorts pulling back from their prepared positions in dismay. Even the Dies Irae was retreating, the mighty Titan cowed in the face of such overwhelming force. Ferrus saw the distant from Moterion, ushering his warriors back towards the ruined fortress, and even Angron was retreating, his blood-stained world eaters like some monstrous, bloody tribe of headhunters. But the Emperor's children, the smoke parted before him, and Ferris saw what he had been looking for ever since he had set foot on this damned planet. Clad in shimmering armor of purple and gold, he saw Fulgrim. Hey friends, it's me, the Ebony Otaku, the well-rounded nerd. It's Halloween, and last Halloween we talked Fulgrim, so I figured this Halloween, why not go back to Fulgrim? I have not abandoned Fabius Bile, and I have not abandoned Eisenhorn either. Just saving them for post-Halloween. So I just figure this is a really pivotal story in the Warhammer universe, but also not only is it pivotal, but it's pretty gruesome, which makes it perfect for this time of year. So if you don't know, backing up a little bit, you know, we are dealing, I guess, primarily in 30K land on my channel. Not that I don't go further into 40K, which, you know, a lot of the Eisenhorn stories, Ravenor and all that takes place in 40K world. But most of the heresy, Horus's heresy, takes place in 30K, which is 30,000 years in the future. That's why it's called 30K. 40,000 years in the future is 40K. If you didn't know, now you know. But Fulgrim is a particular Primarch whose treachery is beyond even that of, personally, I think, Lorgar and the others. When Lorgar turned, he turned out of his need for worship. He wanted something to be the receiver of attention for his admiration, for his worship, for his love, and the Emperor rejected that. From extreme rejection and hurt comes the worst actions. You know, extreme moments produce extreme responses, and that's what happened with Lorgar. When it came to Horus, he had that desire in him that was exploited by chaos to be greater than his position would allow him. He is second in the universe only to the Emperor of Mankind, and that wasn't good enough. That's like being, to use a modern example, that's like being a prince or princess who is the next in line for the throne of a country, but wanting it before the time when the previous generation passes. You have to wait for one generation to conclude their reign for the next reign to begin. And the Emperor is functionally immortal. Even his carcass being on the golden throne, he is still more alive than most humans because his soul is kept alive through the sacrifices of those who have psychic abilities. So Horus sees himself deep, 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 deep down as someone who should have the place of the Emperor of Mankind at some point, and Chaos sees that and exploits it. And thus the heresy begins, as his legion turns and other legions turn with him. But you can kind of pinpoint in the traitor legions what was the catalyst for them to turn. And Fulgrim is really interesting because the Emperor's children live on vanity. They thrive on the exploit, the appearance, the grandeur of it all. If they are going to be in a battle, then they have to be the grandest in the battle. If they are going to practice swordsmanship, you must be the greatest swordsman of all time. They gain their life and their reason to be, their raison d'etre, through perfection. And that comes from their legion being particularly afflicted with a genetic blight, which our good friend Fabius Bile, we love this guy here, him. He were an Emperor's children. And he actually was instrumental in curtailing the effects of that genetic blight. But we read in Fabius Bile in the 40K universe, so post-heresy, post-war, Emperors entombed on the Golden Throne, that blight still exists. The reason Fabius is doing what he does is he feels like his immortality has been taken from him. And he doesn't care who or what he has to go through. He's gonna get what should have rightfully been his, and by any means necessary. There are many an experiment that he does in a couple of other books that you get to hear about. I might get to those. I thought about doing those for Halloween, but I'm not sure how guidelines would feel about some of them. Like some of the stuff in here, like I feel like I'm skirting it. In some of them other books, I'm like, nah, they ain't gonna let me. They ain't gonna let me read that. I'm not gonna do it. But Fulgrim and the Emperor's Children, what should have been theirs was taken from them because there was an imperfection in their gene seed, which is why they go to the extreme of perfection. But even with all of the work they've done to purge themselves of that genetic blight, it's still there. And that is their curse for all time to come. Did that make them pre-susceptible to chaos? Maybe. Maybe not. But at the end of the day, they are all still human, and humans are fallible, and anything humans make ultimately will fail at some point, because human's gonna human, no matter how great that human is. And in Fulgrim's case, when you investigate why he fell to chaos, I think it's not unlike one of his own sons, good old Fabius, not too far off a story. His perfection was taken from him. He even names his legion the Emperor's Children, so that even though he was, how do I say this the best way possible? He wants to be what Horus is, the perfected son that the Emperor trusts the most. And in title, in duty, in war, in diplomacy, he seeks to be the most beautiful and perfected of all of the sons. But no matter how hard he tries to be that perfect, it will never be good enough. Now, I actually compare it to a character on The Good Place. Have you ever seen that? Quite a hilarious little sitcom. Spoiler warning. Where people are in the afterlife and they are in the good place, and they're going through their lives. And one of the characters in there, she is one of two sisters, comes from a life of privilege and wealth. And in the good place, and learning about the lives they had on Earth when they were alive, she did humanitarian work. She was artistic, poetic. She was friends with all the celebrities, a fashionista, beautiful, like everything you could want to be. But in life, she had a sister who was favored by her parents. And as talented as this girl is, her sister was like 100 times more prolific than her. She was a poet laureate, she was a scholar, she was a famous actress, she was everything. So even though on one hand you've got a character who most of us will look and go, wow, they got it going on and all the things, in her own world she's got a sibling that is miles ahead of her, and the family clearly favors the sister, to the point that in the will they spell the daughter's name wrong. That is so bad. Which means she can't inherit, the portion of the estate that was left to her, what little portion she was given, because the bulk was given to the sister. I think that's what's going on with Fulgrim. Even though he is striving to be the best he can be, he even named his legion for the Emperor of Mankind. Not quite there. And when his legion started to recover and he felt they were battle ready, the Emperor still even prevented them from fully participating in the conquest of worlds until he felt that legion was fully healed. And Fulgrim took that as just the greatest insult. And he never let go of it. It's the insult, the hurt of, why am I not good enough? I'm doing everything that is expected of me and so much more, and I'm still not good enough. And that might be the scariest person out there. When a young person, a youth, a child is misbehaving, they get all the attention. All the attention. Because it takes a lot of energy to corral the one who is rebellious. And then you've got the one who might be perfect out there, And they get a lot of attention as well because the family gets to celebrate them, to say, ooh, look at this. We have produced this exceptional human. Aren't they great? They came from our genes. And then there are the ones who are just average and in the middle. They're not up here. They're not down here. They're not out wilding out. They're not angels. They're just in the middle. And sometimes that is the child that isn't allowed the full space to explore who they are, to bloom, to prosper, to become the best version of themselves. And that's what FULGRIM is. He got middle child syndrome. And it's real. Because, I know y'all heard my computer back there. Because it is the middle child, the neglected child, the child that has it in them to do great, but is not being allowed to do so for whatever reason, that eventually unleashes their emotions in the worst way. And in the tale of Horus's heresy on Istvan 5, where so many things began, FULGRIM is Horus's greatest ally in this moment. There are legions who are loyal to the Emperor landing, who have the sole purpose of taking out the traitors. The traitors are on the planet basically as bait on Istvan 5, because if you've read all of the Horus Heresy, or a good chunk of it, you know what's going to happen. The traitor forces are going to pull themselves off the planet as best they can, and Horus is going to drop a virus bomb on them at some point, and a viral bomb wipes out all life. It is a creepy, crawly, oozy, living thing that gets in between the cracks in the vessels and bleh, gone. That's what's going to happen. But at this moment, nobody knows that's what's going to happen. Not FULGRIM, and not the character whose viewpoint we're looking through right now, Ferrus Manus. Ferrus Manus and FULGRIM, amongst the Primarchs, all the Primarchs have a bestie Primarch, and FULGRIM and Ferrus are bestie Primarchs, or were, until FULGRIM tried to turn Ferrus to chaos with him, and Ferrus rejects chaos, and thus rejects FULGRIM, and is now on the hunt for FULGRIM on this planet during this battle. It's quite the battle. So I figured that this is where we would go for the Halloween, because who doesn't love a good battle? Let us continue. His former brother drew his most debased followers through them, waving them back to the black walls of the long sweeps of a glittering silver blade. A long haft of ebony worked with silver and gold extended behind his shoulder, and Ferrus smiled grimly as he realized that his brother had also understood that the fates had ordained this duel must take place upon the blasted plain of Istvan 5. Twisted freaks in flesh-covered armor surrounded the Primarch of the Emperor's children, and a monster with red, seared flesh attended at his right hand. Only now, at the end, did FULGRIM dare to reveal himself. Even as Ferrus finally saw FULGRIM, he knew that his brother too was aware of him. He felt hate and betrayal rise in him like a suffocating wave. The traitors were falling back from the loyalists with increasing speed, leaving thousands of corpses behind them, both friend and foe. The scale of the slaughter was not lost on Ferrus. And though his blood sang with this victory and his imminent confrontation with FULGRIM, he was not blind to the fact that the Loyalist legions had suffered appalling casualties to win it. He watched the enemy line melt before him, the Loyalist warriors exhausted by the furious battle. Stumbling as their enemy fled before them, he called his Morlocks to him before opening a channel to Korax and Vulcan. "The enemy is beaten," he shouted. "See how they run from us. Now we push on. Let none escape our vengeance." Grainy static washed through the reply. Korax's words almost lost amidst the rumbling thunder of explosions and the descent of yet more allied dropships.
Hold, Ferris. The victory may yet be ours, but let our allies earn their share of honor in this battle. We have achieved a great victory, but not without cost. My legion is bloody and torn, as is Vulcan's. I cannot imagine yours has not shed a great deal of blood to carry us this far.
We are bloodied, but unbowed, snarled Ferris, watching the distant figure of the fabulously beckoned Fulgrim climb to the top of the jagged spur, a black rock, and spread his arms in a blatant challenge. Even from hundreds of meters away, the mocking smile, twisting his features, was clearly visible. As are we all, put in Vulcan. We should take a moment to catch our breath and bind our wounds before again diving headlong into such a terrible battle. We must consolidate what we have won and let our newly arrived brothers continue the fight while we regroup. No! Shouted Varys. The traitors are beaten, and all it will take is one final push to destroy them utterly.
Varys,
warned Korax.
Do not do anything foolish. We have already won.
Varys snapped the Vox channel and turned it to face the surviving Morlocks of his bodyguard. A half-century of Terminators surrounded him, their clawed gauntlets crackling with blue arcs of energy, and their proud stances telling him they would follow whatever order he gave, whether it be to retreat or to march into the hell of battle once more. Let our brothers rest and lick their wounds, he yelled. The Iron Hands will not let no others have the satisfaction of settling our affairs with the Emperor's children. We will pick up their battle in the next one. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and yeah, let's keep going. I love this story.